right, we got our first real look of the new additions, Duggan, Tabor, and Slowik in an interview with Hafley. We're starting to see the brain trust, the personality of the staff, which is critical, on display. And so I'm going to cover that here today. Now, I've been out of business a little bit for the last couple of days. Had a storm that's wrecked my neighborhood. Electric was out, so I apologize. But I'm back in the game, so I'll have a lot of coverage for you coming up soon. Now, before we get into that, also, Hackett was supposed to be our quarterback coach, didn't officially get signed, and then he jumped over to the Cardinals OC spot. I get why he did it. I'm not sad. I mean, yeah, I liked him as a quarterback coach, but I didn't like the fact that if Slowik didn't pan out, Hackett was next probably on board for OC. So it's a good and bad. I think we'll find a good quarterback coach to fill his spot. Not a big deal. So get into it. Hafley. I think even if I'm not talking about the future, I'm just trying to evaluate. I know a lot of people like to do the football Nostradamus thing. You just predict the future. And that really has a low hit rate. And most people don't really pay attention to the misses. It's really about the excitement of the prediction. I don't try to do that. If I get enough data points, I'll put my foot in the ground, but I try to evaluate. And if you're just looking not at the history of the Dolphins, not what Ross did in the past, not how you've been let down, all that stuff, which is fair, but this is a new group. And if you just evaluate these guys step by step, I think this is another data point for why I was excited about Hafley, excited about Sullivan, excited about this style of personality and build. Guys, your character, your relatability, your charisma, that's the foundation of football as far as a staff, as far as being a leader. And then your philosophy and your scheme, that is the bridge to the ceiling. The ceiling is your acumen, your intelligence. It demands high intelligence. You want to put it, obviously in the character department, you would want to add in discipline, consistency, hard work. But all that stuff is the foundation, relatability, ability to be disciplined and maximize everything, then what you believe in on a football level, but then the ceiling is raised by your intelligence. And it's one thing to have a quirky, intelligent coordinator. It's totally different when your HC is like that. And Hafley, I appreciate him. I'm going to get into some of the stuff. He was articulate, normal guy, almost zero pretense. And he explained his rationales for Slowik, Tabor, and Duggan, and it made sense. And when very few people will do this, he said, well, Slowik, he was a defensive guy, and then Shanahan took the smartest dudes and said, come over to the offensive side. Now, he's also telling you about himself. He's telling you he's not one of the smartest guys. Defensive guys, they don't necessarily have to have as high an intellectual acumen because they're playing defense. It's the offensive guys that got to figure a way through that, got to be a little bit a step above. Now you got guys like Fangio and Flores and brilliant DCs, the Belichicks, and they can take a defense to a whole nother level. But the defensive guys, really, they're more about, being solid, having character. Obviously, some acumen helps a ton, but it's the offensive guys that need to be a little bit sharper. And he said, I'm not one of them because Shanahan didn't pick them. And that shows genuine understanding of who you are. And so now, for me, Hafley is a way better head coach prospect than Slowik. I'll get into Slowik in a second. But the one thing was funny. Didn't you feel like the talk between everybody over and over again about family felt like I was like hearing Dom talk from Fast and the Furious, which is great. But it's just like family. I'm like, man, is this a Fast and Furious 11 over here? Anyway, Slowik is very intelligent, but he's a little quirky. He's not really sure of himself. Every once in a while he'll pop up and look at you and directly contact, but most of the time he's like kind of looking down, and that's fine for an OC. So you have the guy with the high acumen, but maybe not the nature to lead. But I thought I didn't know he played on offense, running back and wide receiver. He explained very clearly why he was on defense, because Shanahan wanted his offensive guys who he saw early his skill set to understand defense. And then he was slow to come back. He comes from a family of defensive coaches. This is a really good background. But then he said he wanted to get back to why he fell in love with the game, playing running back, receiver. And so that's how he made the transition. And it makes sense. And it's good portents of what he can do. Now, there's things obviously with the Texans that I didn't like. I would like him to have more of a fiery personality or stronger personality where he's not kind of looking down and talking. But ultimately, you look at McDaniels from the Patriots. He's another guy like that, super smart, but he's just not a head coach material. And when you talk to him or when you hear him talk, it's like he's here, but he's not. So it works for the offensive guys. Hafley fits his role and Slowik fits his. Now, I liked how he talked about he comes from the Shanahan tree. In that tree, there's bones, and the acorns don't fall far from the tree because they have the same philosophy, but within that, they grow differently. I thought that was really cogent. And when you're listening to guys that are not, retarded, totally socially inept, or disingenuous, you get nice nuggets. And they're obviously going to be smart enough to not to tell you the inner details, but through the process of a normal conversation, you find something very interesting. And he talked about all successful teams today run the football. Wow! Man, how many people called me a moron all these years? And now a lot of people are saying it. It's not because I'm a bright guy, dude. This is like basic. But we didn't hear basic. When we had guys in the past, the last regime, basic was like barely heard. So the fact that he talked about it's about the trenches, he cited the style of play that he likes is physicality, violent, and tough. And I've talked about that. And he talked about the best thing when you come in after a game is seeing the offensive line displace the opponent. And these are the things I've been preaching since 2021. They've gained a lot of steam now. It's just common football understanding that somehow, some way, fans of the Dolphins have been told that that's not true. And so, again, it doesn't make me really, this is like, we use a pigskin of football in the game of football. It's actually basic. But he noticed, remember I've said that in the NFL, the offensive line makes the NFL world go around. He says it's the starting point for everything. I talked about how an OC, especially when they go into the season, when they go into the games, when they're going through the year, they're evaluating what they see their protection and run blocking is, and then they base everything off that. It's not converse. It starts in the trenches, and whether you believe it or not, they believe it. Hafley believes it, Sullivan believes it, and now Slowik believes it. And that's not what Greer or McDaniel believed. So, but then the next big thing we talked about, Tua. And he got passionate over when they asked him about trenches. Like, I believe in style of play. And that was nice. It showed that he has some fire. He's not totally like, out of his mind, like a Gase type guy. I appreciate that. And so there's from a psychological standpoint, there's good stuff to that. And then he had another fiery kind of conversation over Tua. He said, I believe he can find a way. Now, is that company line for here in Miami? Or is it company line to say, hey, anyone who wants to trade, this guy can be salvageable? I don't know. Was it a selling tactic? But he went on a long thing talking about how guys, they get lost for this reason and another, but then it's through the NFL. That's what makes it great. You find guys bounce back. Now, you could say Tua's got no arm, he's an idiot, whatever. Do they agree? Do they not? We'll see. It's a big evaluation for them. I think at the very least, they've got to say that in order to try to maybe trade the guy if that's what they want. He talked about Ewers. He said he grew over his time and he also needs to grow. He didn't seem as hot to trot on Ewers, like ecstatic-wise. He said all the right things as Tua. But again, we don't know if that's the desire to kind of shine up Tua for a trade. We'll see on that. But he talked about, and it's things I've been talking about, you've been talking about, competition. Competition makes you uncomfortable. When I walked on as a walk-on in college, that's all I felt, especially because I was a walk-on. Everybody was trying to make you uncomfortable. Now, there were certain coaches that knew how to, it was almost like a game. One guy was there to make you uncomfortable, and the other guy was there to kind of build you up. But their overall sense was, we've got to put you in the fire of uncomfortability, see how you respond. And it's the only way that if you're the right kind of guy to melt off the impurities of your metal, not, the metal of your nature, and turn you into the guy we need. But it starts with the fires of competition. I've talked about it. Football, all I know is two things. And these guys have said it over and over again, all the family for them. For them. It's violence and competition. I've said that. Violence, you could distill the game down in your evaluations in many regards to violence and competition. And as a designer of a team, a leader of a team from the coaching standpoint, these are the foundational principles. And that was great to hear. He got really excited over HN, which is good. He's not going nowhere. We're going to keep him. We're not trading him. He was very excited. He talked about he made one mistake in 6 weeks. And he didn't look stress-free. He looked very happy. He wants this guy here. Dolphins want this guy here. HN's going to want money, and we're going to have to pay. They clearly love him. Now, he talked about the goal of an OC, and I've talked about that, is maintaining the initiative. You're trying to make the defense play in reaction, to guess, to be uncertain, insecure about what you're doing to keep them off balance, because the number one asset of an offense is initiative. You know where the play is going. You know the snap count. And that's got to be on once. And that's what happened with us with McDaniel. The defense said, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, and not doing this. So we got a choice between the outside run, screen game, throw over the middle or deep. And that's one of the major reasons why McDaniel struggled. But he also talked about, look, when we were speaking about the Shanahan thing, your philosophy, you have your philosophy, but it's shaped by the talent. And so McDaniel, in a lot of ways, had his hand tied behind his back. Not to say he was perfect, but that started with Greer. But all three of these guys had the same philosophy, and it will be very interesting to see if they get the talent here, what we got. But the idea of keeping the defense off balance with speed to the line of scrimmage, he said he wanted to get there with time. He's going to have audibles. He's going to want to change the beat. He'll, get to the line of scrimmage late, get to early. He's going to change the formations, and he went over that, keeping the defense off balance. Big deal. Now, Duggan, he's that guy, he's got the charisma, the relatability. He's big. He plays perfect towards Hafley, who's kind of like a little bit of a shorter, slender guy. He's more of the intellectual, I would say. They're both smart. The way they present themselves doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly who they are. Like Duggan's more like an all shucks. But he caught Omar Kelly, and you could see that he's got the fire. He's got the intelligence. Hafley said he's very smart. He processes very quickly, but he comes along as a steady Eddie guy. And Hafley talked about with Duggan, he's not going to have to just deal with the defense all week long. It's his right-hand man. He'll call the plays, but this Duggan allows him to spend time on special teams and offense and be across-the-board head coach. Come game time, he'll call the plays. Is that exactly what I want? No, we'll see. But Duggan really seemed like a guy who understood. He came off as an all shucks guy, but every once in a while, he would offer a deep seed of knowledge. And so I think he's one of those guys that holds back his intelligence and he comes off as like just a regular Joe, but he seemed pretty darn smart. He talked about it all starts up front, stopping the run. That's how you win a Super Bowl, stopping the run. Things I've kind of talked about. And notice that all three of them talked about playing fast. And so you're going to get a more physical, tough style team that's not going to be overtly complicated within the play selection. The play calls will set the nuance, but they're going to want them to have kind of simplistic stuff so they can be the biggest and fastest and toughest guys and to hit all day and be physical. And that's what all three of them talked about. Defensive pressure sets the coverage. We're not going to blitz. He talked about blitzing and, different looks, different opponents, different reasons for it. But generally speaking, they're not going to blitz a lot, but it is not going to be, it's going to be determined by the situation and the opponent. Omar Kelly had a smart ass comment. I like Omar, but he tested Duggan. I guess maybe he saw the all shucks guy and Duggan came out and kind of put him in his place. Tabor kind of did the same thing too. But he talked about investing guy in his players, which was what coaching is and what you want from this style of DC. Because he's not calling. He's kind of like the number 2 liaison developer, the mama of the crew, where the daddy is Hafley. He's a daddy on the team level, but also on the defensive level. And that's a perfect kind of guy. He talked about Brooks's play is inspiring, and it is. And he's going to do a lot better. I got coverage for that on the coverage we're going to use and how it's going to enhance Brooks. And then Brooks will be a full 3-tool guy in my belief. But he talked about how that's who he's going to want. He's going to say, look, this is the kind of guy we want. Brooks will be back. They're going to sign him. He talked different things about setting the edge, like maybe the wide 9. But overall, he seemed like the perfect guy for what he's being set up to do. Then there was Tabor. I'm not big on special teams. He seems like a smart guy, the oldest of the bunch. It looked like, I don't know, maybe just ages. But he understands the Bills, which is good. He had a good special teams, seems to understand this new kickoff style because they had some great returns last year. But Kelly, again, I like Kelly. I'm not knocking him, but it was 0 for 2 in this one. He kind of said, well, special teams coach, what kind of head coaches come from that? And he's like, well, other than Belichick, Cowher, Ditka, Allen, and Harbaugh, I don't know. And I thought that was really good because he showed, again, he's quick on his feet like Duggan. I think Kelly does what he's supposed to do, and I like that. You better choose with these guys, he is not going to be as much red meat as he had with the old group, it appears. So these guys look good. I like them. I think that maybe you can see some of my evaluations on why I liked. I'm not so high on Slowik, but I see a little bit more of a window of a rationale. But for me, Hafley is clearly a good candidate for us. We'll see if it's great. We'll see how he does and all that. Tabor, really, I like Tabor a lot. Duggan, I'm kind of feeling pretty solid on considering his position. That's in this organization. I think that works for me. Slowik is a guy that moved the meter just a little bit towards the positive, and I'll be interested to see how that plays out. So that's the deal. I got a lot of stuff. No lights for a couple of days, but I was, I had a little bit here and there on the internet, so I made a lot of notes, got a lot of stuff for you. Anyway, Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.